Story 1. When you have the necessities of life, you do not think about them. When you do not have them, you do not think about anything else. Story 2. Wisdom and skills do not automatically come with age, but with experience gained by doing. Story 3. Eventually you are going to have to parent your parent and they are not going to appreciate it. Story 4. I have recently realized I must learn how to make tamales. Our parents, aunts, and uncles are getting older. Once they are gone, who else will make the tamales? Story 5. Your parents are just people. Realizing they have flaws, struggles, and emotions just like you can be both sobering and humanizing. Story 6. We should not have taken all the free time we had for granted. Story 7. There will always be a pile of laundry waiting to be washed. Story 8. Time seems to fly by faster with every passing year. Story 9. Once you lose your parents, there is no one truly here for you. Your partner or spouse could leave at the drop of a hat, friends come and go, and other family members have their own families. It is pretty gloomy out here. Story 10. All the sayings I heard in my youth that I thought were terribly trite and stupid are actually true. The truest and most hated is that youth is wasted on the young. Story 11. You have to accept your own messiness and other people's messiness. I have a coworker who I know has talked badly about me behind my back, but she has also been kind to my face. I could rant about how fake she is, but then I would be talking badly about her behind her back, which I have done. I complained to someone that she talks badly about people. I realized I am not so different from her. The kindness she shows can be genuine even if she talks badly about me. People can have complex feelings. Someone can like you and dislike you at the same time. They might feel comfortable showing the things they like about you and uncomfortable showing the things they dislike. Adopting this mentality has greatly reduced my social anxiety. I no longer feel the need to morally police others, and I am not so harsh on myself. We both talked badly about each other, yet we still get along. Life is messy. People are messy. Story 12. Being around people you do not like drains your energy. It does not matter if they are childhood friends or family. The sooner you get away from them, the better. Story 13. There are many unintelligent people and they work in all jobs, including as doctors. Story 14. Despite email, Facebook, text messages, phone calls, and countless other methods of communication, it can be difficult to stay in touch with people. Friendships often degenerate into chance encounters and promises of, "We need a proper catch-up," that never materialize. The older you get, the easier it is to become lonely. Story 15. This is it. There is no real upward progression like baby, child, teen, young adult. Suddenly you are there and it is all in your hands. There are expectations, but life is less structured than before. Story 16. Life for the average person is mostly boredom, dread, and routine, with what often feels like tiny stolen moments of happiness and fractionally smaller moments of pure joy. Story 17. No one is coming to save you or solve your problems. It is on you. If you are lucky, you have a good support system, but ultimately it is up to you. Story 18. There are no hot singles in my area dying to meet me. Story 19. Cooking for yourself every day takes more effort, time, and money than I thought. Story 20. You are at the mercy of the current political, societal, and economic reality. You either adapt or you die. It is a tough pill to swallow. Story 21. Managing your expectations of everything is extremely important. It is a lot easier to see silver linings or benefits when you are not expecting the outcome to be a certainty. Growing up and aging is a privilege. Never make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. Story 22. Realizing that half of your paycheck goes to taxes and you have no idea where it goes. Story 23. Parents are not always correct in their lives, despite what they claim. Story 24. Food. The amount of time required to plan, shop, cook, and clean to keep a family fed is unreal. Add in several kids who play sports, travel to tournaments, and require staggered meal times. It's exhausting. Story 25. I will have to think of dinner ideas most evenings for the rest of my life. Story 26. If you grew up with difficult parents, The only way forward is to reparent yourself and try hard to do even a little better. Story 27. You never really grow up. At least you never feel like an adult. Story 28. Most people are totally ignorant about politics, but they are the ones who decide who will rule us. Story 29. Realizing that your parents are mortal. As a kid, it seemed they were immortal. Then it hit me. Story 30. I discovered I did not have the childhood I thought I had. My family is not as normal, supportive, or caring as I believed. Even now, it still feels wrong. I was not abused. I was fed and clothed. My grandparents paid for my college. At the same time, I was completely ignored as a child. I learned early that staying out of the way and bringing home a decent report card was all anybody cared about. During my 4 years in college, my family never came to visit, even though it was only 45 minutes away. Sometimes they would stop if they were driving through or visiting for another reason. In the 20 years since I moved after college, not a single person has planned a trip just to see me. I might get a call if something else is happening in my city. I am still the bad guy if I do not come home for the holidays. My father was not a great parent. It is not normal to be afraid of your father. I remember a family camping trip when the tent leaked and we spent the night sleeping in a puddle of water. There was no way I would wake my father. He would be angry and yell, and it would probably be my fault. Now I am learning how all of that has impacted me as an adult. Story 31. I budget and allocate time and resources. I used to be carefree. Now everything has to be planned. Story 32. Life is not fair, and some people are luckier than others. Story 33. Make time to do what makes you happy now. Later is a moving goalpost that likely will never come. Take care of your mental and physical health. When you get to a point where you have no choice but to prioritize it, it is often too late. If you do not absolutely love your job, do what is expected of you and nothing more. Work is often a transaction, not an investment. Family will more often than not become very important the older you get, whether that is your existing biological family or building your own. Do not jeopardize those relationships while you are younger and they do not seem as important. Take time to learn what you are good at and use that to make yourself useful to others. If possible, learn basic repair skills. The difference between calling a plumber or handyman at 2 a.m. and making a quick fix yourself will pay off many times. Story 34. Success in most fields is more often than not a function of how wealthy your parents were. Story 35. Compound interest seems like magic, but it is just math. The Standard & Poor's index is very hard to beat over time, and there is little sense in trying. Story 36. There is no threshold you cross where you say, I am an adult. You will always be yourself as you are now. Story 37. The rest of the world does not give a shit about your problems. It is going to move on without you, so you better keep up. Story 38. We are led by idiots and we put them in those positions. Story 39. Car insurance is a racket. Costs so much and keeps going up. If you ever need to use it, insurers do not pay out much. It is my most annoying bill to pay. Story 40. You knew everything you needed to know in your gut, but you did not listen. Story 41. Sometimes people just do not make it. Bad things happen to good people all the time. Story 42. 1. Adults were not all-knowing. They were just older. 2. Loud does not equal correct. 3. Even if they have been doing it that way for years, it is still a poor idea. 4. Watch for red flags in those closest to you. Story 43. The grown-ups do not know what the fuck they are doing either. Story 44. The Cowboys would never win another Super Bowl in my lifetime. Story 45. You have to let friends go. I held on to all of mine so tightly, even when we were states away. Our lives were moving in different directions, and we were not compatible anymore. It was hard, but I had to accept it. Story 46. I can become homeless and poor at any time, even with the best education, opportunities, and circumstances. It can happen because of medical bills and debt, or because someone else causes it. Story 47. I have to depend on myself and only myself. Growing up, It was not my responsibility to take care of myself or to prepare for daily tasks. Now it is just me, and it can feel overwhelming. Story 48. Happiness comes at a cost, and peace is usually as good as you are going to get. Story 49. Ultimately, no one else is responsible for your behavior. Seeking to blame others first is a human default and a losing path. To get the most out of life, we must assume responsibility for our actions and control the little we can. It is a solid foundation. When you begin from taking responsibility for your actions, you make higher quality decisions because you know you will own them. Story 50. There is no main character in this series. The series refers to all of human existence. Story 51. Having a work-life balance can be more important than a higher salary, provided your salary meets your needs. Story 52. Nobody will save you if you mess up. Also, my parents are getting older. Story 53. It is probably because once you turn 18, everyone expects you to forget the hurt from earlier and reminds you that you are now an adult, so your childhood no longer matters. Story 54. I actually have to figure out what I'm doing for dinner every day. That gets exhausting. Story 55. Getting a job is surprisingly easy if you count the ones in your dreams. Otherwise, you literally cannot. Story 56. Sometimes the good guy loses, and there is nothing you can do but learn from it. Story 57. You have to exercise more as you age to maintain the same body. Story 58. Everyone is winging it when it comes to adulting. No one really knows what they are doing. Also, a college degree and working hard mean nothing for financial success unless you are born into money. Story 59. The only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Story 60. I could not wait to grow up and thought there was no way I would ever want to be a child again. I was wrong. I want to be a child again, but I would do things differently. Story 61. Age discrimination is socially accepted and goes unchallenged more often than not. Perfectly healthy, intelligent, competent people who know how to use a computer and a cell phone get lumped together as useless and stupid because they are old. If younger people are lucky, they will eventually get old and see what it feels like to be on the receiving end of mean and ignorant comments. I hope people will be kinder in the future, for their sake. Story 62. At some point you are going to be the oldest person in the room, the person whom others look up to for wisdom, and that is frightening as hell. Story 63. Trusting people can be difficult. They are often disappointing and not always what they seem. I will also disappoint others at times and may not know it despite my best intentions. Story 64. That we couldn't really change the world was a major disappointment. Story 65. No one cares about what you are wearing, what your job is, what you did in school, or what sports you played. You could wear a clown costume to the store and no one would stop you, so why worry about your shirt, pants, or hair? Story 66. I am autistic, so I did not realize until my 30s that I had been neglected as a teenager, and that none of the people who claimed to be my friends actually liked me. Story 67. Wars do not end. This is a constant crisis. It is not just the suffering I see. Suffering is continuous. Every minute someone somewhere is torturing a puppy, abusing a child, or dying of starvation. Neglect, injustice, and cruelty are ongoing. I can do little more than be a drop in the bucket while spending much of my time trying not to think about the unimaginable horror unfolding as I sit and eat noodles. Story 68. Working hard, doing your best, being honest, and playing fair does not guarantee you will be treated right by others. Bosses can be dirtbags. Coworkers may wish you ill. You are competition for promotions and raises. Jobs are not families. Many people are only interested in themselves. You must watch out for backstabbers, sleazy people, and dishonest cheats. Too many people abuse positions of authority for personal gain. Don't trust everyone. Often the only person looking out for you is yourself. Outside of my wife, my children, and a very few close friends, I am distrustful of almost everyone. It's the only way I know to survive. Story 69. Most people do not care about anyone but themselves. Story 70. Some people are simply bad. There is no way to make them good. Story 71. You are only as capable as your body allows. People will make up stories to hide things they cannot admit. People are fundamentally incompatible. People will see you more for who you are, not for what you do. Story 72. Personal growth requires willpower and the ability to swallow their pride. Most people are incapable of it. Story 73. In life, you work every day, and once you get a job, there is no more school schedule. You do not automatically get 2 weeks off at Christmas, days off for Thanksgiving, federal holidays, spring break, or summer break. Story 74. How shallow humanity is. I've seen so many friends who were considered ugly when they were young and later became attractive, and I noticed how much people's treatment of them changed. I've been losing weight, changed my style and my hair, and I noticed the difference. I'm sure once I reach my goal, I will be shocked at how people treat me. Story 75. Everything costs money, and as you get older, Christmas means less. Story 76. I realized that, in an attempt to avoid embarrassment, I missed too many opportunities during my teenage years. Story 77. Most adults are exactly the same petulant child they were in kindergarten. They only grew taller. Story 78. Eventually you fall into a routine of just being alive. Work, do house chores, catch up with family and friends when you have time, and perhaps have a hobby. Mostly it is the same routine day in and day out. Life becomes pretty boring. Story 79. No one is thinking about you. They are too busy with their own lives. Live your life and stop caring what others think. Story 80. People can be cruel. I knew that from a young age, but it feels worse now that I'm an adult. I have learned that life isn't fair, that I will make bigger mistakes than I did as a child, and that dating is difficult and delicate. Relationships are not always ideal, and heartbreak can be inevitable. But if a relationship is not good, I have the right to leave. The other person does not deserve my respect if they are not respectful. I also do not have to be polite to someone who is rude or acting creepy. It is better to be safe than sorry, and I should listen to my gut. I am realizing how mortal we all are, so it is best to be responsible in decision-making even when my desire is to act otherwise. I am learning to seize opportunities and move forward. This is my life and I can take control. It is not up to other people anymore. Story 81. Everyone is a product of their upbringing. Whether you think someone is awful or wonderful, it is usually not simply their nature but the events in their development that shape them. This has taught me to be more forgiving of people, especially my parents. Story 82. No amount of money I spend on things I enjoy will bring me the same unbridled excitement I had as a child, because I can never fully shut out everything else that is going on in my life for even a few hours. Story 83. Everything that once seemed important suddenly stopped being so. The life you had has changed. You have new interests and enjoy different kinds of food. You can see your past self as a child, and you kind of understand that everything that happened in your life made you who you are now. You begin to notice what your parents did wrong and how people around you treat you. Everything takes on a new meaning. You start to understand and respect people for who they are. Others' success becomes your motivation. Story 84. I spent so much of my adult life not realizing that miscommunications and innocent misunderstandings were actually not innocent. They were lies. I had been lied to. I was never going to get a phone call to reschedule my job interview. For years, I thought I had misunderstood and that they would call me back. There was no misunderstanding. I was told I would be called to get me to leave. My ex-girlfriend did not lack time for relationships, as she had said. She was never actually moving away. I assumed her circumstances had changed when I found out she was dating someone else. No, she had lied to me. There was no nuance, no stipulation, no miscommunication. My trust was taken advantage of. Trust, which I had once given freely, now feels like a fragile and dangerous gamble. I mourn not just the relationships and opportunities one lost, but also the version of myself who trusted easily and happily. I am grieving the lies and the loss of certainty, of believing the world was simpler than it is and that people were generally truthful. I no longer assume every interaction is genuine. Fuck the world. Why are we all living in it? Story 85. Who you know is just as important as what you know. The only corruption you hear about involves those who were caught. There is much more corruption occurring everywhere. The rich use religion and social media to control the masses. There is no God. Story 86. It is not all about you. Some people just need a certain amount of confusion in their lives. Story 87. Time does not go back and is finite. Studying is important. We must not let laziness win, at least most of the time. People change whether you want them to or not. Money is very important. Most things will not go the way you want. Story 88. Holy fuck, I am an adult. Was the biggest realization and the most sobering. Story 89. Doing what I wanted to do was much less important to my mental health than doing what I needed to do. Story 90. No one has it figured out, no matter how much they pretend. Story 91. You go from being your parents' child to being a parent. I did not mind, but I never thought about it when I was a young adult. Story 92. Working extremely hard every day yields no greater reward than what a mediocre person receives. Story 93. When I was young, I couldn't understand why adults got tired so easily. Now, simply sleeping or waking up in the wrong position or at the wrong angle drains my energy for the day. Story 94. Success is largely the result of luck and hard work. Intelligence, skill, and the quality of your character are mostly meaningless. Story 95. I am completely in charge of my own life. I used to dream about it when I was a child. When the day came, I felt only terror. Story 96. You can fulfill your childhood dreams, but everything between wanting and achieving them can be painful, challenging, and sacrificial. I have the dream job, a loving partner, 2 beautiful children, a cat, and a modest but wonderful roof over my head. I achieved all those things while struggling with extremely low self-worth, addictions, abuse, numerous mental health issues, and toxic relationships. Now I sit on the back porch of my cute A-frame cabin, looking out at the lake while my kids play in the background. Yet I still struggle with depression, anxiety, regret, guilt, shame, and many other negative feelings. I take medication and have been in therapy for years. Story 97. No matter how hard you try, some people only truly care about themselves. Story 98. Some people simply get lucky without doing any actual work. It is difficult when you are struggling to keep your head above water and someone else swoops in effortlessly. I know a few people like this who have things handed to them. Story 99. All the enforced structure in your life is gone. You are free to do anything you want, including failing. Story 100. No one cares whether you live or die. That truth can be both depressing and liberating. Story 101. I realized that I should have spent more time enjoying my childhood rather than rushing through it. Story 102. That school taught me nothing. I acquired most of my knowledge outside of school, through college and self-study. I wish I had been taught about budgeting, bills, taxes, the cost of funerals, and much more. Story 103. Boy, I sure spent a lot more time than I should have on certain people, hobbies, and other things. Story 104. Realizing your issues were caused by your parents because they were also traumatized, you now have to reprogram your brain for however long that takes. When you do, you realize, wow, I was really out of my mind. No wonder I was an outcast and things were not going my way. Story 105. Being a kid was really hard, and I thought life in adulthood would be an uphill battle because everyone said to just wait until you're older and take on all the responsibility. But it turns out debt, chronic stress, and struggling in college are worse than feeling powerless as a child. A lot of sympathy for kids now. Story 106. Most people are absolutely terrified of their own imagination. Practicing artists are extremely brave. Story 107. It is not enough to love my wife and kids enough to die for them. That is too easy and lazy. Real love is in the act of living for them. Exercising, working even when you do not want to, taking the kids to the park, and making other small sacrifices. It is easy to feign love, much harder to live it. Story 108. Some family members are bad people. The sunshine and rainbows illusion from childhood disappears and you see them for who they are. It is heartbreaking. Story 109. You're not automatically guaranteed a family, a house, and a good job. Those don't just come with age. Story 110. Adults generally do not become more mature as they age. They merely become larger versions of their childhood selves. Story 111. I realize that most parents, mine included, do not adequately prepare their children for the difficulties of adult life. Learning about financial responsibilities and budgeting is a key part of that preparation. I had to learn these skills myself, making many mistakes along the way. Story 112. I had despicable parents who did everything they could to make my life worse. I did not realize it until I left home, even though many other adults questioned me about it. However, it did make my adult life easier. Story 113. My sister is a narcissist, and I spent years depressed by her gaslighting. Story 114. Retirement is a financial state, not something that automatically happens with age. Story 115. Youth is wasted on the young, and before you know it, the next milestone is retirement. Story 116. There is no community. Most people do not care about you and will leave you to die if helping you would even slightly inconvenience them. I have always tried to live by, if you have the means, you have the responsibility. Helping people whenever possible, even if it is inconvenient at the time, so long as I have the resources and the ability to help. My experience with other people, especially conservatives, has made me realize that a majority of people do not feel the same. Many people simply do not care about others. Story 117. Actually, many adults are not kind or well-balanced and have not matured emotionally or mentally since their early 20s. So there is no point in reasoning with them. Many people trust their governments, which is completely insane given the consistent lies, greed, corruption, and warmongering throughout our lives. Story 118. No one is going to save you, especially not your family. Learn negotiation and physical training and live according to the book Outlive. Story 119. I don't know about hitting me hard, but it doesn't take too many years of life to realize that the world has a hell of a lot of assholes and people who are dumb as fuck. Story 120. I used to think being an adult meant the freedom to do whatever I wanted. I discovered that being an adult is actually doing all the unpleasant tasks you do not want to do because you know you have to. Story 121. When I can't control circumstances, I can control my attitude and my behavior. Change is the only constant in life. Story 122. Being a good person does not mean you will have a good life. Story 123. No one can save you. You may find support, but that is likely the extent for most things. I thought the bad experiences would end when I became an adult, but they do not unless I try to help myself. I have support now, and healing has been easier, but I still have to do the hard work. Story 124. Grandparents typically pass away first, then your parents. You then understand the grief your parents felt when their parents died. Sometimes younger loved ones die first. That is heartbreaking. Story 125. I realized my parents aren't the smartest people in the world and aren't very good at life. Whoops. Story 126. Being an adult is an unpaid second job. There is always something that needs doing. Clean things, fix things, sort laundry, load and unload the dishwasher, run errands, handle administrative tasks, go to the store to buy a few items, and sort out other miscellaneous chores. But be sure to have it done by 10 in the evening because you have to get up at the crack of dawn for another day at your paid job. Who cares if your day job has been terrible and you can barely keep your eyes open? Just power through. Then a curveball comes and you get off track. Your car breaks down so you cannot do certain things, the washing machine is faulty so there is no laundry, and someone who should help you lets you down. Now imagine that with children. More mess, more food, school runs, possible sickness, and the care that follows. My parents only kept on top of this because my mother did not work. Story 127. I fear my family will not be around for my whole life, and I may witness my friends die as well. Story 128. People who are busy will make time for people they love. If not, stop trying. Story 129. When I first moved out of my mother's home, I had saved a lot of money, but it only lasted a few months. I did not expect to fall into living paycheck to paycheck so quickly. Story 130. Not everyone is your friend. Choose your values and principles in life over others' opinions. Story 131. Nobody is coming to fix you. No fateful event will save you from the mundane. Only you can take bold action to change your life. Story 132. Virtually no one has any idea what the fuck they are doing. The world we have built is held together by spit and duct tape. Any day when things do not completely collapse is a bona fide miracle. Story 133. The worst for me was the way people grow apart. You can lose all your friends and relationships if you do not properly maintain them, that is, put effort into them. I am 36 years old now. This was one of the toughest lessons of growing up that I experienced when I was about 14 or 15. Story 134. They always told you to be yourself and not change for others. But if you want friends to keep hanging out with you, you cannot be a pain in the ass. School no longer forces you to spend time with others. Make yourself the kind of person people want to be around, or they will stop spending time with you. Story 135. How quickly time has passed and how little you have left. Story 136. There are no adults. The vast majority of people are remarkably incompetent and simply coasting forward with no guardrails or sense of responsibility holding anything together. The only difference between us and monkeys is a very small handful of genuinely intelligent people putting simplified technology into our hands. Story 137. Oof. Well, let's see. Certain relatives could have taken custody of me or helped find someone to do so, but they chose not to. My biological parents were monsters, and I am the product of luck. The people who saved me were not the best either, and most of the time I am okay with that because my sense of normal is so very fucked. I am enough, but I will never feel like it. Sometimes I am too much, and I have no control over it. I seem to be lacking the skills everyone else has, but I am really good at the things I do have skill in. I will always feel untethered. Story 138. Your parents were no more capable as adults than you are now. Story 139. Thinking and complaining that things are stupid and need to change, but not doing anything about it, is how 95% of the modern adult population operates. The doers are few and far between. Story 140. It is not the mistake. It is how you deal with it afterward. It hit me hardest when I realized I needed to have the same mindset toward myself. Story 141. Shallow pursuits such as alcohol, drugs, and sex steal the only time you have to earn significant money for personal freedom and to help others. Story 142. There may come a time when you must care for your children and your aging parents at the same time. Story 143. Seeing my parents grow old and frail and eventually losing a parent has been hard. I realized they were right about many things I could not understand at the time, and that they knew this and were far more understanding than I had imagined. Story 144. Death is always just around the corner. I thought I was invincible in my 40s, but a gust of wind could blow me off my bike and crack me in half. Story 145. That image of a big, happy family with Sunday dinners together, all relatives getting along and always helping each other through hard times is not real. Everyone involved has to want it, and a lot of people do not. Story 146. One year the concept of summer vacation disappeared completely from my life, and I did not even realize it. Story 147. I have never really felt like a grown-up, not the way I imagined when I was younger. I am a 16-year-old kid in a 34-year-old body, and I have no idea what I am doing. Story 148. People you care about have the right to make terrible decisions. Sometimes there is nothing you can do about it. Story 149. You cannot just work hard and keep trying. Sometimes that effort will leave you in a worse position than you would have been in. Story 150. You will never get an A grade again. Performance appraisals are designed to ensure that everyone is mediocre or worse, except for those who make the appraisals. It is like taking a test graded on a curve while the professor takes the same test. Story 151. After age 25, you can experience lifelong changes that may negatively affect your life. Story 152. When you look around for an adult and realize that you are the adult in this situation, it is humbling. Story 153. The drunk driver has the right of way. Life is not fair. It does not care whether it hurts you or helps you. Story 154. People do not care about other people the way they are taught in school. They care about money more than the life of another person. Story 155. No one is coming to save you. No one will arrive at your doorstep with money or a guide on how to live your life. If you are in a difficult situation, you must be the one to figure it out and improve your life. Story 156. You change and start to push people away when they do not match your values. Story 157. Even the most educated people don't have the answers you're looking for. Story 158. Not everyone is worth your time and effort. Some people you are kind to will treat you badly. If you notice this, run away. Story 159. As we grow older, time seems to fly faster each year, as explained very well by Casey Neistat. Story 160. It really is all meaningless, and it is up to the individual to pretend there is meaning. Story 161. The days pass slowly, but the years go by fast. I remember being 25 and thinking my 40s were so far away. I expected to still be young and capable. I'm struggling with how much I will change over the next 20 years. Seeing friends turn 50 feels strange. Story 162. Right now I am struggling with the fact that jobs drain so much more free time than school ever did. So many creative activities and hobbies get pushed into a future that will never come. These long shifts kill my sense of uniqueness. Imagine buying supplies to learn drawing only to realize it has been months and you never used them. A guitar, cosplay supplies, or cross-country skis sit unused as nights wrap up too quickly. I get home at 6 p.m., buy groceries, cook, eat, meal prep, and clean, and after that I am just too tired to be creative. There is a solution, and you will not like it. Spending your hard-earned money to buy freedom. You can open your wallet to order food, hire cleaning services, or buy other conveniences. Story 163. My childhood felt like 40 years of living. My 20s felt like 30 years. My 30s felt like 20 years. My 40s already feel like a blink. In other words, half of my children's time at home and half of my family's shared experiences have already passed. I realize my 50s will feel even shorter, and I cannot imagine what the 60s will be like, since time is now measured by how often the children return with their own families. Make the most of what feels like 9 decades of life. Pursue personal development and growth in every area. Seek opportunities to experience what life has to offer, because time seems to be accelerating rapidly. Story 164. Unless you teach, you will never get the whole summer off until you retire. Story 165. Nobody cares, and everybody has their own problems to deal with. We are born alone, live alone, and die alone. Story 166. No one is coming to save you. You have to be strong enough to see yourself through hard times. Life is very fucking unfair sometimes. Story 167. The more of the world you see, read about, and learn, the more you realize that humanity and life are not as magical and beautiful as you once thought. Story 168. Managers are not necessarily people who know what they're doing. You can be excited to work with senior members of the business and then find out they are morons who can only talk a good game. Story 169. Once childhood ends, it can feel like all that remains is work for the next 40 to 50 years, followed by a few years of retirement if you're lucky, and then death. Going forward, life becomes responsibility, bills, children, health problems, romantic relationships and breakups, and work every day until you die or become too old and worn down to enjoy retirement. Story 170. I know now how hard it was for my parents to watch me go. Story 171. Life isn't some grand race with luxurious prizes. It's made up of moments when your son excitedly brings you a Lego car he built himself at 6 a.m. If you can't take joy in those moments, you're in for a hard time. Story 172. There is no one who will look out for you other than you. Story 173. Everyone is doing the best they can, given their individual circumstances and abilities. Story 174. After some point, you will have to be the adult and compromise your needs and wants for your parents and children. Story 175. Both of my parents died by the time I turned 30. They were not the best parents in the world, but they were there. I could at least call them if I wanted to, It is a strange new kind of alone to have that gone. Story 176. I look at my oldest son from time to time and tell him it is new for me too. Many of those first experiences with your oldest can seem completely unfamiliar from that perspective. Story 177. You cannot control whether you are part of divorce statistics. My wife left me a month ago. Story 178. You do not automatically stay close to your siblings. It is up to both of you to put in the effort. It hurts when they do not, no matter how much you want it. Story 179. If someone is not meeting your energy, it is because they do not have the skills or the interest. Often you will not know which. Move on. Story 180. Your parents may not always know what is best for you or give good advice. Story 181. You cannot win. You can survive and make things marginally better for yourself and your family, but in doing so you likely increase your reliance on a system designed to fishhook you and demand more from you. Story 182. When the time is gone, there is no way to go back. Dreams die and cannot be revived. Story 183. I have to help my parents learn emotional regulation because their parents did not teach them, while also teaching my children the same skills. Story 184. Realizing that my boomer parents are now soft, gentle grandparents to my niece because they see her occasionally and are retired. They are no longer drowning to stay afloat in awful factory jobs like they were when my sister and I were little. There is a long list of reasons why boomers boom so hard. Leaded gasoline, lead paint, lack of mental health awareness at the time, and so on. I realized part of my parents' resentment, emotional and physical abuse, and neglect was due to parenting under the crushing boot of capitalism. I am not saying it excuses their behavior, just that it was another straw that broke the camel's back. I'm glad they treat my niece better than they treated us, but we were just kids. I have been hesitant to have children because of how resentful and stressed they were while supporting us, the high cost of living, and the collapse of Earth's ecosystems. I work in the environment. The list goes on. I'm tired. Story 185. I do not know if I am even allowed to say this, but most men do not have good intentions toward women. The ones who do are a small minority of the men you encounter day to day. I wish people had been more honest about this when I was growing up. I appreciate the few who have good intentions. Story 186. I realize that most adults lack basic empathy and common knowledge. It feels like they have the brain of a nagging, selfish 6-year-old. It scares me. Story 187. Realizing that adults aren't that great and don't know what they're doing. Story 188. Just because someone wronged you does not mean they will feel remorse or apologize. You may take years to get over it while they continue to live their life happily and as normally as possible. Story 189. When my parents were 30, they had 5 children, a large house, and 3 cars. When I was 30, I had none of those things. Story 190. Somebody has to dust. It doesn't disappear on its own. This may seem innocuous, but it started an avalanche of appreciation for all the little things my mom did to keep the house in order when I moved out. Story 191. There are people who are just not going to like you, and there is nothing you can do about it. Story 192. It shows how selfish many people are. Seriously, out for themselves and forget everyone else. Then you become like that for your own protection. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.